What's going on, folks? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Cheers, y'all. It's a Wednesday night. This is the Lake Fork Bassmaster. Sure, why not? The Lake Fork Bassmaster Elite Series preview. We're going to give you the very best patterns going on right now. I got the hottest guide on the lake sitting to my right. Well, I don't know which way y'all are seeing it. He's on my right. I don't know. Sometimes it mirrors it, and then you'll be on my left, and then I look like a fishing guide that doesn't know anything. So, anyways, got my buddy David Ozio. David, thank you so much for joining us tonight, brother. I really appreciate it, man. It is about to go down. Next week, the guys start practicing on Sunday. They're going to practice Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They actually have a day off on Wednesday. Then Thursday through the following Sunday, we have the Bassmaster Elite Series. And what I'm trying to figure out, and we're going to talk about this more tonight, is will the all-time weight record fall? I'm going to ask David that tonight. We're going to break it down. It's going to be pretty awesome, this discussion we have tonight, because this man's got something a little special going on. And I made him bring goodie bags. We got all kinds of top secret guide tricks coming out. Going to put out the information for all you guys to watch tonight and kind of set you guys up. And really what we really hope is that the information we share in this video is going to allow you guys to enjoy the coverage more next week. If you're watching the live coverage, if you're out on the lake watching the guys, maybe this can help you understand exactly what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they're seeing to catch these fish, because it's all about loving your fellow man and helping each other catch more and bigger fish around here. That's the only thing it's about, and we're going to keep it about that. I'm excited.
You're always excited.
I'm
fired up. Ready to get some information?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why you're excited.
Listen, the door's over there, and I got you in a corner. So
he does have me in a corner.
And I'm a lot bigger than you. So, I'm going to find out what you're doing one way or the other tonight, and we're going to do it live. So, it's going to be great, man. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, before we get going, guys, I do want to share one thing. Many of you have heard about our boat lanes chip that we've been working on. I'm just going to let this air as if it were a commercial. I'm going to try to line this up on the TV so y'all can see it, or on the phone so y'all can see it. Boat lanes chip, it's out for the ranch right now. You can order it at yourlakeforkguide.com or buy it at Lake Fork Marina. Little birdie told me that Hummingbird probably going to be available first of next week. So for some of the Elite Series guys, if y'all are watching this and you're running Hummingbirds and you want to get the boat lanes chip, I think we're going to have some for y'all next week. The rest of you guys that are Hummingbird guys, get ready to order as soon as it's ready. I'll put it on the website for y'all to order, and we'll also bring some to Lake Fork Marina as well. Could have that ready to go as early as next week. Garmin, I'm still not 100% sure on. We got a little more testing to do on Garmin, but it's all happening. The boat lanes chip's for real. Check it out right here, guys. Let me see if I can do this. This is like the cheapest. Dave, this is the lowest budget production you'll ever see right here.
What's going on, guys? Billy Lawson from your Lake Fork Guide. I want to tell you about a new product we got today. As you see behind me, Lake Fork is super low. It's tough to navigate. What I want to do is allow you guys the ability to learn how to navigate this lake just like a pro. Let me introduce you to the Your Lake Fork Guide Pro Lanes. It's a boat lanes chip. There's many out there. I feel like we've put more time and effort and information on this one. You're going to have lanes in every corner of this lake. You're going to have more hazard waypoints to tell you whenever underwater obstructions get close to these marked lanes that we have. We have variable running depths available on these lanes. We have lanes marked that are good at 6 foot low and higher on the pool elevation of the lake. We also have lanes that are marked good at 3 foot low and higher. Once we reach 3 foot low and higher, guys, you'll be able to run to almost any corner of this lake using the Your Lake Fork Guide Pro lanes. As you'll see behind me, you can see the underwater obstructions. You see that patch of timber right there? Obviously, you wouldn't want to run through that. But if you pick this lane right over here, man, you can fly right through that no problem. And that's exactly what we've done while the lake is low. Is go out and mark all the usable areas and ways to navigate into them in the gaps between the timber that's under the water through the entire lake of Lake Fork. So go check them out at yourlakeforkguide.com. You can order them there online. You can also buy them in person at the tackle store at Lake Fork Marina, and go get yourself some Your Lake Fork Guide Pro lanes and navigate Lake Fork just like a pro.
There you go, fellas. That's been our commercial break. Brought to you by Your Lake Fork Guide. That's almost, if for as low budget as we do things right here.
That is the lowest budget commercial I have ever seen.
Bro, this entire thing is the lowest budget. Look, it's a iPhone and a charging cord and a, what do you even call this? I don't even know what this is.
Oh, folks, if only you were here to see this.
Yes.
This studio is magnificent.
We are the lowest budget, actually live bass fishing show you'll ever find. That makes us the L-ball and makes you guys the low ballers. So thank y'all for joining us tonight, man. We appreciate it. I don't want to go through all the hellos and how you doing. We appreciate every one of you that's joining us. I've seen a few names: John Denny, Cody Mays, several other guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's get down to brass tacks on what's going on at Lake Fork. we're kind of in a different situation, obviously, this year. Everybody's no secret. The lake is roughly 5.5 foot low right now. It has been low since they drew it down in December, around 6 foot low, got down to 6.5. It's recently come back up. Some of the backs of the creeks are getting pretty dirty because of the water flow we've had in, and some of the northern creeks. Most of the lake's still remaining pretty clear for whatever reason. 2 thumbs up for that. We're all happy to see that. You got some of everything going on, man. We've still got a few fish trying to spawn a little bit. We've got some fish trying to get offshore a little bit. And then we've got something going on that Dave's doing. I don't know if this pattern is going to keep going throughout this whole tournament. First, let's talk about what you do. What is the best pattern on the lake? Because, guys, listen to me. As fishing guides, it's a very small community. We all kind of hear about and know about what everybody's catching or not catching for the most part. And for dang sure, if they're busting them, you're going to see it on social media if they're really busting them. There's almost nobody that if they're catching them really, really, really good, they're not going to keep it secret. This cat right here has been catching them more consistently and better than the rest of them. That's why I wanted to bring him in to do this with me tonight. So what is the pattern that's been working for the hottest guy on the lake here lately? Tell me what's been going on from right now going back to last week.
First of all, if you saw Billy and I's seminar on Friday night, you saw that there's a big difference between he and I. I'm more of a numbers guy. We let the big fish come as they do. All right, that's just the way I roll. He, on the other hand, they're searching for big fish at all times, and that's the #1 agenda for them. So, with that in mind, I will take my people out, and my goal is to get them as many bites as possible. And a month ago, we were in the backs of the creeks throwing chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, these things, and doing okay, all right? But as the water started to warm and some of these creeks started to get into the 70s, then I started working my way back out towards the main lake and checking things on the way out. And started catching them okay, but by the time I got out to the main lake, then we were catching them even better on the main lake. And so what I did was I just used more finesse tactics like a drop shot, like a shaky head, like a Texas rig, and we just focused on the wood that is closest to the bank. And it's no big secret, there's a million stumps out there on this lake. It's just a matter of which stumps you pick in order to have the kind of days that we've been having. And that's really all I've been doing. We focused on certain things. If you can find a wood line somewhere, a wood line, all right?
There's defined tree line. There's defined tree lines all over the lake.
There's tree lines that are actually shallow, all right? Glade's got a lot of them. A lot of places have them. I mean, in Little Caney has got tree lines. I can just rattle you off a whole bunch of places like that. Mustang, Little Mustang, even above the 2946 bridge.
Pretty much all the major creek arms are going to have some of them.
There's going to be a wood line in there somewhere.
About the only one that really doesn't have very many is like Birch is just solid trees north of the power lines.
But in Birch, when you go past the power lines, there's wood lines in there also. Yeah. The problem with some of the things in Birch is that some of those wood lines have been shallow up until the last week. This last rain.
By shallow, you mean too shallow?
Too shallow. Yeah. I want the water at least 3 to 4 foot deep. Well, now that water, it has come up enough to where that has been working, and I have been in there.
Before we get too far into the pattern, let's first things first. Let's talk about baits. Let's talk about gear, setup, baits.
Well,
tell me about the baits.
Everybody knows that I'm a big drop shot fanatic as far as that goes, and so, but we've been branching out even more so in the to shaky head, and I've used this bait right here quite a bit. It's a 6 cents swing shake.
What size are you using?
This is the 5/16, and I am using a V&M on the back. It's a V&M chopstick and Texas smoke.
Texas smoke color.
Yeah.
Now look, I want to show you guys the deal. He's talking about swing shake. See, I'm holding the lead head, and look, that lead head stays still and it pivots. So when you get down to that worm, it allows that worm to have more action. Right. It's called a swing shake.
Right.
By the way, you can order these at 6centsfishing.com. If you do, please use the code Your Lake 4 Guide. You'll save 10%. We'll sure appreciate it. So is this your primary bait right here?
No. And what the deal is that there's days where they really won't hit this that well, and there's days where they want a reaction bite in that wood. If you look up on the bank, you're going to see plenty of stumps that have a lot of air underneath them. The follicles,
systems are
the root
exposed.
systems stick way out, and
Way
you can
exposed.
see that. Imagine those stumps in the water, and it's the same type of situation. Well, there's days where they want a reaction bite going straight into those stumps, and so what I have done is that I have tied on a drop shot with maybe a 7, 8, 9-inch leader, and that will flip those things down into the stumps using. Up until this week here, we've been using these types of baits: a red shad. It's a red bug shad.
Red bug shad,
Red
Zoom
bug shad.
trick worm.
Yep. And then this is a robo worm. That is a robo worm.
It's a robo worm in hologram dawn. It's got red, green, and looks like the little blue or purple in it.
And then the other one has been this regular, just Aaron's Morning Dawn color.
Yeah,
And
Aaron Martin's
So
color, that's right.
this bait works exceptionally well on hard sunshine days. And what ends up being the big difference maker here is that on the windy days, which we have been labeled with wind here for the past 2 months.
Every day.
Every day, the wind is
Every day.
blowing. Well, I found that the more translucent baits like this in the wind don't work nearly as well, like this robo worm on the windy days, all right? And what you have to go to is the harder
red.
matte, the harder red colors is what we've been doing on the windy days. Now, on the sunshiny days that you're in calmer water, then the translucent worm has been the killer. It works the rest. Now, all of this has been going on now for the past really 3 weeks.
Yeah.
3 weeks. I've been catching anywhere from 25 to 35 a day on guide trips, and we've had some up as high as almost 10 pounds. And usually we've been having a fish in the 7 to 8 pound class every day.
What do you think on a normal day, on an average day? And keep in mind, folks, these are guide customers catching these fish primarily, not David. David fishes very little with these guide
Yep.
customers, I'm sure. Because once you get a pattern figured out, you really don't fish much. So these are not Bassmaster Elite Series guys. These aren't even full-time tournament fishing guys, or local regional tournament guys, or even guides. These are just, for the most part, completely novice bass anglers most of the time. On your average day, what do you think your best 5 bag weighs for those guys?
For the last 3 weeks, our average five fish bag has been minimum 25 pounds every day.
25 pounds minimum
Every
for your regular weekend Joe.
Yeah. And we've had some 30-pound days. Here in the past 2 weeks, we've had 4 30-pound days. And this is using
See what I'm
finesse type
saying
baits.
with I'm just wanted to get that out there so you guys can start to prepare yourself for what you're going to see next
Well,
week.
and he's right. These guys that are coming here, they're not dummies
good.
by any
No,
means at
they're
all.
good. They're the
And
best.
they're going to take this lake apart. And here this week, for the first time, I've seen some guys actually delivering some big bags with deeper diving crankbaits. And so Billy said a while ago that these things really, the key word to go along with all this is transition. And everything right now is in transition. There's shallow fish. I'm going to give you one scenario. We talked about it on the Friday night seminar, was that in the last 4 or 5 days, I'm pulling up into some areas where you can see the water's coming up and the sand comes out for a decent way off the bank, and then there's a break line. And that break line drops off into 10, 11 foot really quick. Well, there's some stumps that are right on that
leads me
break line.
right into my next question for you. So, okay, we got the tackle. We know what baits we're throwing. We know the presentations. We got shaky heads. We got drop shots. I think at times you told me you're even doing light Texas rigs, right?
Yes, light Texas rigs,
Light
absolutely.
Texas rigs. Okay, so we know that we're pitching wood. We're flipping pitching, casting the wood, fishing root systems, all that. Now, like you said earlier, there's a million stumps on this lake.
Yep.
Dive in and tell me how you pick which set of stumps you
Well,
fish.
it depends on the class of fish that you're looking for. Now, I took a
The
guy.
big ones.
I took a guy. Hold on.
The
now.
big ones.
I took a client out yesterday.
Is there any other kind day?
Yesterday, that's looking for fish for the tournament coming up this weekend.
Which
And
we have,
so-
for those that don't know, we have a special slot limit on Lake Fork. You can keep them either under 16 inches or over 24 inches. Nothing between 16 and 24 can be kept. And you can keep 4 under 16 or 1 over. Or in a big bass tournament, it's a lot easier to weigh in fish under 16. So tournament guys, for those that don't know, typically target
Right.
16-inch and under fish.
Right. So now you're coming into just about any pocket you go into, you're going to see this sand line and you're going to see a stump. And you look down that sand line and you're going to see every now and then, every X amount, there's a stump in there. We went through a period of a couple of days where every time you threw up there next to one of those stumps, you caught a good under. All right, and
Wait, on the
with a break line where it comes off the sand and then the sand
you
tears
can
off.
kind of see it.
You'll see the
so you can
you
visually see the
break
drop
line,
off.
and it's
Got
a
it.
darker spot where the water drops off, and the stump is in the dark spot where the water is getting deeper, and you flip up there and bang. I mean, this was an 80% win.
What's
every
the
time.
key to a bigger bite in that
Okay,
scenario?
and then so for the bigger fish, we've been catching the 6 to 9 pounders. Has been backed off even further in 6 to 9 foot.
So just visually seeing the break line and then back off it.
And then back off of it
Gotcha.
in the deeper. All those bigger fish have been out in a little bit deeper water.
Okay.
And every single 6, 7, 8, 9 pounder we caught in the past 2 weeks, especially, have all been in that window of that. Okay. We have not caught a single big fish. Now, my guy today, we caught some 4 pounders up in 2 foot today. We had, God dog it, we had 5 pounders, and then probably had 5 4-pounders today. And towards the end of the day, the afternoon, it seems like those fish move up, and a lot of those fish were literally in 18 inches of water.
Wow.
18 inches. And so we were throwing up on some stumps that were in super, super shallow water. And one of them, the guy focused, he said, I said, I'm thinking there might be one in the shade of that stump. He threw up there behind that stump in the shade, 4.5 pounder was in there.
So we're still seeing a lot of really good quality fish that these guys can count in their best 5, pulling up basically, essentially, almost on the bank. Really,
Yep.
I mean, as close to the bank as they can get. There's nothing on the bank for them to get like there usually is, but they're getting in really shallow water still to this day. Now, my biggest question coming out of that, I think we've kind of covered the pattern pretty well there, though, is, to me, as hot as it's getting, and the water temps are increasing daily right now, are you starting to see some of those fish leave you, or does it just feel like you've got more still coming to you?
They're still there. They're going to be there. What's going to end up happening is those bigger fish, and it's happened every year, and I kind of molded this in my mind for many, many years. Those bigger fish, they will be in the same areas. All they'll do is gradually move themselves out to a little bit deeper. We caught our first fish yesterday in 10 foot doing this. First time we've had a bite in 10 foot. We caught 3 in 10 foot of water. They've been in 6 to 8. We actually caught some in 10. By the end of next week, I think a lot of those fish are going to be those bigger fish are going to be out in 8 to 12. So I'll reassess my catching big fish code to go more to the 8 to 12 window. And then what they end up doing is that a lot of these places where we're running bank lines that have these breaks in them or little ditches or little drains, what those fish are going to do is meander their way to main lake points and onto points that have timber. And then I put people on big fish in years past on main lake points that have timber and 8 to 12 foot, and they've always waited over.
So what I'm hearing and what I was already thinking going into this event that we have coming up is that we're going to be having fish transitioning leading up to the event during practice and during the event itself from Thursday to Sunday. We're going to have fish that are making their way to those main lake points.
Yep.
And by the time this tournament gets here and by the time this tournament's done, there's going to be some guys fishing some main lake points with big plugs and stuff like that, probably catching them really well. It's so eerily similar to me. I know you were around the lake, and then you've been around the lake forever. I know you're around then. And I don't know how much attention to detail. We've never discussed this before, so I don't know how much you paid attention to this event when it was here. I'm sure, knowing you,
Last year?
you paid attention to a lot of detail. No, I'm going way back to 2014.
When the lake was low.
In 2014, the lake was a little bit low. They came on Memorial Day weekend, and that year it fell around May 23rd or something like that. And so essentially same time of year, and what's really eerie about it is when the lake was low that year and they came at that time, it's almost the exact same scenario where the fish were moving to those offshore spots leading up to and during the event. There wasn't a ton of fish offshore yet. The guides weren't really catching them offshore yet really well. A couple here, a couple there.
Just like right now.
It is, I mean, almost as close to identical of a situation as you can get, folks. And from my experience in years past, what happens is when those fish finally do start getting in groups of 5, 6, 8, 10 fish on a main lake point, when they're first out there, they're easier to they bite better. They're easier to catch before everybody starts fishing for them on those points and kind of breaks them up and moves them around on those points. And so what I'm setting up here is, if you look back at the results of the 2014 TTBC, Keith Combs,
Crankbait.
deep diving crankbait in a big 7-inch hollow body on a 1-ounce jig head. Most of them were caught on crankbait for Keith, but him and some other guys caught some of their key fish on the hollow body swim baits as well. But what I'm really getting at is that was the all-time biggest 3-day weight in the history of professional level bass fishing. 110 pounds over 3 days. Folks, the all-time 4-day record is 130. Keith Combs was weighing in 37 pounds of bass a day, right? If he caught 21 the next day, if they had a 4th day, he would have broke the all-time record. And he was averaging 37. I think out of the 15 fish he weighed in, the smallest fish he weighed in out of 15 over 3 days was 6 pounds, 12 ounces. So that is how the lake fished when these guys hit it in the exact same scenario. I mean, the exact same scenario. So we're set up for one hell of a showdown next week. Like, it's going to be, to me, I think it's going to be crazy. And I do think there's going to be guys catching big fish, especially, hopefully, well, we'd love to help those guys out. Hopefully some of those guys hear this and it gives them some clues and they'll take it and expand it and make it even better like they do. You're going to see some guys catch fish in shallow water. You're going to see some guys catch fish in mid-depth. But if I'm placing my bets, this thing's going to be won on the main lake, probably on a deep diving crankbait.
What I envision happening is not too much different. I'm going to bet there's going to be some topwater fish caught in the mornings, because we got a week
There's
to
still
go.
some of that shallow point deal going on.
We got a week to go, and I think that topwater bite's going to get even better with the super spook, things like that. And then there could be some swim bait fish caught. I don't know if the watercolor is right enough for it, maybe. But what I really envision happening with these guys, I don't think a lot of them are going to put a drop shot in their hand or a shaky head or anything like that. What I think they're going to do is they're going to take where these fish are moving to, and they're going to be throwing a crankbait in this, say, 8 to 16 foot range on a crankbait, and I bet they pick those fish off in the middle of those trees.
One thing let's not forget, they've all got better electronics now than they did in 2014.
Yeah.
They've got better side imaging quality. They've got forward-facing sonar now. Like, these guys, so the deal that blew my mind on the 2014 tournament with Keith Combs, that really educated me on how terrible I was of a fisherman compared to these guys, was I could go out there and graph 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 fish on a point. I couldn't catch them, because when those fish are on a point and they're moving around a little bit, whatever, dude, it's really hard to long line a deep diving crankbait and get it down there, like bouncing around them close enough where they'll react and eat it. But these guys were so precise with their marking of the fish and lining up the cast and getting the bait on the fish. They were so precise with that. It blew my mind how good they were. Now they can just point their sonar at them and look at them and throw the crankbait and watch the crankbait swim down to them.
Right. And I envision that all these guys are experts with that front-looking sonar, and I think that's what's going to end up happening with a lot of these guys, is they're masters of this, and they'll run that crankbait bite, because those fish will be in those trees on these points in this certain depth of water. Some of them may be suspended up a little bit off the bottom, and I don't know that they'll get into the type of water that I'm even fishing to try to catch a 25-pound bag.
Because here's the deal, at the end of the day, they're not trying to catch 30.
Yeah.
These boys are trying to catch 5.
Yeah.
They're trying to catch 5 muy grande, you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to catch 5, the 5 biggest they can. Like, they'll sacrifice bites to try and win this derby. And when you come to a Lake Fork tournament in May and it's post-spawn and those fish are just moving out deep, you're right. I don't think we're going to see anybody finesse fishing. They're going to be, I think whoever wins this tournament is going to have to swing for the fences. I think all those guys know they're going to have to be fishing big aggressive baits, getting big reaction bites, and they're going to have to try and target these bigger fish to have a chance to win. So I think they're all going to be fishing that way.
Well, but you said the key thing a while ago, and you asked my opinion on, are these fish moving away from where they're at right now where I'm catching them? And I'm going to say the answer to that is no. Now I'm going to say the reason why that answer is no is what's getting ready to come up here like very shortly. It's called the old brim spawn.
Oh, it's already started.
And there's a place where there's a bunch of holes where brim are just loaded in this one pocket today. And those bass are going to feed on those brims. So
Absolutely.
those fish are going to stay in that range here for still a while. And so I think this pattern that I've got going on with this is still going to last through the end of this month with no problem.
Yeah.
Last year, I started catching them deep in about May 20th, May 22nd, and I was only catching a few every day, very few. But as it got closer to June, those fish got away from those trees, and then I've had it all my life that when I'm flipping these trees here, it seems like those fish get away from those trees the first week of June, and then it's done. They're no longer on the trees, and now they're out on the main lake.
The question is, yes, that your brim spawn, absolutely. There's going to be some fish up there that are easy pickings or whatever. They're going to be with their feet on brim, and that's exactly what they do. Is what you're talking about? They sit on the timber just outside of the brim bed areas, and that's how you catch them, pitching things like you're talking about to that timber. But I guess the real question is there going to be enough of the bigger fish up there for somebody to compete and possibly win this tournament? Because as great as that pattern is for customers, we're talking about winning a tournament where you got dudes that are the best in the world at catching them, and they only got to get 5 in the boat a day. Is there going to be enough of the bigger ones for that guy to compete with the dude that can catch 5 offshore?
There's going to be a mixture. And
I
what
think
this
so, too.
pattern is diluted. Now, because of the fact that the water's warming, some of those fish move out. Some fish, they're residents. They stay there, and so those guys are going to be targeting a lot of those offshore fish with those big crankbaits and those deep diving with those lead head swim baits on the bottom, and they'll catch their share, but this is going to be an interesting event because of the fact that you can go either way and still pull a good bag, and it's just going to be who's the most clever and in the right spot in order to gather a 30-pound bag a day.
Well, what you got to do to break the all-time record is 33 pounds a day.
Yeah.
That's what you got to have. 33 times 4, I ain't no math major, but I'm pretty sure that's 132.
But where I'll tell you where they're not.
Here's what I'm getting at, though, right here. If you've been catching 25 pounds a day on average with customers, and these guys are who they are, there ain't nothing to say somebody can't average 33 a day doing that and compete and maybe break the all-time record doing what you're talking about, let alone the offshore deal.
And that's possible. But one thing I just said, I'm going to tell you where they're not in the backs of the pockets. I mean, they are not in the backs of the pockets. I've gone into several places and worked that, even on some of the best wood known to man, and there's no lights. Everything's now gravitated more out to main lake or the first quarter of a lot of the major creeks.
That's a good note right there. That's something you didn't tell me until right now. I'm a little disappointed in you. I'm a little disappointed.
I didn't tell you everything.
Why not?
I don't want you casting into my live well.
Why not?
Whole buzzard?
Yeah. I'm in. Call me what you will. I'm trying to catch some. No, that's great, man. It's good stuff. Now, one more thing we're going to do on here while I've got you here. I don't know how much of this you watch, how much you follow. I'm going to list a few names that I think guys ought to be watching out for in this tournament, and I'm going to ask you to make some picks. So, obviously, to me, the number one name to watch out for on this is Keith Combs. When it comes to deep diving crankbaits on Lake Fork, nobody's made more money and had more success than Keith Combs has with a deep diving crankbait in his hand. You're going to see old Chartreuse Blue get all she's worth next week from Keith Combs, and I think it's going to pay off. I think that's going to be an obvious pick that everybody's going to pick. I think Lee Livesey's going to be an obvious pick because of the hometown deal, and he won last year. I'm not convinced that this is going to be Lee's event. I'm not. I don't know. I mean, it would not surprise me one bit if he ran away with it because he's Lee, and I know what he's done on the lake over the years. But, just going into it, I don't really feel like this is necessarily going to be Lee's event. If he hears this, I may have just tugged on Superman's cape and he may go out there and do his thing. But another name to watch out for to me is Stetson Blaylock. So, do we know who finished second in 2014 at the TTBC?
Yeah.
It was Stetson Blaylock, a young Stetson Blaylock at that time. And
I knew where he was fishing too.
And I know where he's fishing too, and there's already fish showing up on it. And he had he caught significantly more numbers than Keith did in that event of bass. And he was over 100 pounds in 3 days himself.
Yeah.
Okay? So he was on pace to break the all-time record. Like the second best 3 days of professional bass fishing that's ever happened was Stetson Blaylock in second place in 2014 at the TTBC. So Stetson Blaylock's definitely a name I want to watch out for in this event. You know, outside of that, Patrick Walters has a great track record, and he's known for his live scope abilities. I think you can see Patrick do some damage with live sonar at this event, even though he's in like 13th. But we're so used to seeing Patrick in the top 5, it's kind of like, well, he's off a little. But he's in 13th. I mean, he's still fishing good. So I think Patrick Walters is one to watch. I want you to give me and Chris are going to do it Sunday, and I'll do my official picks on Sunday along with Chris on our podcast. But David, right now I want you to give me 3 picks for the tournament.
Ooh.
Can you do that?
I'm going to take my number 1 choice is Lee Livesay.
Okay. All right.
And I think he's got great history here. He knows every square inch of this lake. He's thrown a crankbait before. He's had crankbaits hooked in his neck. Yeah, and so he knows this lake well with a crankbait. He'll know if that swim bait bite's going to work. He'll also know, because that topwater pattern he had last year, you remember he had 42 pounds on one day on topwater. So that time could be just lining right up for him. I'd have to say my next pick in line is going to have to be Brandon Polinick. Polinick might be a guy that would take the reins on this type of pattern that I'm doing and run with it. You know, that type of thing. He'll stumble on that, he'll figure it out, and then he'll see that there are some 4, 5, and 6 pounders to be caught, and if he can manage to wheel on 30 pounds a day, you know, that's going to be competitive as far as that goes.
Absolutely.
Once you step back, you know, I mean, I'm in the camp with you about Stetson, but there's some dark horses out there also. Some of these guys that you don't really pay a lot of attention to, you know, that could end up waking the things up. I remember, and I don't even know if he's fishing. What's the kid that was throwing the crankbait in the TTBC a few years ago that was fishing in Dale and Glade throwing the crankbait? If you said his name,
Brent Ayler?
No, it was the young guy. I'm blank. Can't think of the kid's name. But anyway, if I can think of his name, he'd be a guy.
Chad Pipkins.
No, it was a guy that was fishing. He was close to Chad Pipkins. It's
I don't know.
He finished like 3rd.
I don't know.
I'll think of it anyway. I hate to get pinned down here, but
no, I'll put you on the spot. I really
he's
did.
the guy that
and we're
comes
live.
to mind, and I can't remember the kid's name. But he's a strong contender because all he's going to do is throw a crankbait also.
Yeah.
So I would have to think that most of the guys that are going to throw crankbaits are going to figure this puzzle out by next weekend because, you know, I think it's going to come together, or 2 weekends from now, it's going to come together.
It's going to be something to watch. Now, I'm sitting here talking about all-time record, and I'm just, like, it probably sounds like I'm assuming it's going to get broken. Listen, to break the all-time record, everything has to line up, right? I'm just going to tell you, they've been bass fishing on the professional level for a long time now on a lot of really good bodies of water. For Lake Fork to produce 130 pounds over 4 days, or 131 pounds that we need to break the record, everything has to line up just like it did at Lake Falcon in 2008 when they set the all-time record. The weather's got to stay stable. The wind's got to somewhat cooperate. Watercolor's got to be right. Like, what I'm telling you guys, though, is a week and a day from this tournament starting, and the history that we have in 2014 in an almost exact same situation tells me that it is very possible that we're about to see something truly special go down. I guarantee you this. They're going over 100 pounds like they always do when they come to Lake Fork. Doesn't matter what the conditions are. They always go over 100 pounds. And I've told people this. I've told Dave Mercer this. I've told some other guys from Elite Series this. I've told Patrick this. I said, the scary thing is, even though Lee caught 42 pounds on day 4, he had like a 13-pound day or whatever it was in that tournament. Even though Brandon Cobb had 115 pounds or whatever it was in 4 days, he had like a 15-pound day in that tournament. They had a flood when Brandon Cobb was here. They had, last year with Lee, it just wasn't quite clicking on that shallow point deal. There was fish spread out doing everything kind of in between. It wasn't really just right. I've told all these guys, y'all have never actually hit Lake Fork when it's clicking on all cylinders, when it's really, really good. Y'all haven't hit it yet. If things keep progressing the way they are, there is a chance for those guys to hit it when it's fishing good. Like, it's that offshore deal could be just right. That mid-depth deal that Dave is doing could be just right when they hit it next week. Now, it may not be. We may have some weather changes. We may have some unforeseen circumstances. You never know. There's no absolutes in fishing. And it may not be the deal, and they may not break the record. But either way, it's going to be a hell of a show like it always is with Lake Fork, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
it's going to be entertaining to say the
I was
least.
just looking to see if I can see that kid's name, but I don't see it. No, I don't see it.
There's been so much change. He's liable to be on a different tour
Yeah,
now.
that's very very possible. I don't see it here, but anyway, it is going to be quite. It is going to be quite the event to watch and to follow in order to see how these guys are going to, are going to do. Now, I'd love to see the curveball of all curveballs, and these guys have to deal with a 40-mile-an-hour wind day. I would so love
That'd
to
be
see
interesting.
that.
It looks
Oh
like
my
it's be
God,
out
I'd love
there.
to see that.
Looks like it's be out there thanking
For the
God
last
for
2
spotlights.
months, I mean, we've had to deal with that, and we've still been able to. I mean, I had some days when the wind was blowing. I had the 2 customers from Davenport, Iowa, and our 5 best fish that day were 34 pounds on a chatterbait in a 30 plus mile an hour wind. So Fork is quite not normal, you might say.
It's not.
It's abnormal.
It's abnormal. It's different this year. These guys that have fished here the last couple of years are going to show up and be like, "Where am I?" It's their first day of
Well,
practice.
they all love to come here.
Their first day of practice, they're going to be like, "What on earth? This is not the same lake that I know." Yeah, they do love it. Absolutely, of course they love it. It always produces the biggest weights of the year. Why wouldn't they love it, Dave? People love the big bass, Dave. I've been trying to tell you this. People love
but
big
in the
bass.
guide world, it's a different game in the guide world because these clients, they want to catch some fish. Granted, putting a 10-pounder in a boat would be awesome, but my peeps, they like these 2 to 5 pounders. They just have a great time with them.
Yeah. See, what you got to do is start your YouTube channel and cultivate your style of fishing, and then those type of people will book trips with you.
Well, I
That
mean,
like your style.
That's
how that works.
A guy watched your seminar with us on Friday night, and I got a call, and the guy was just begging me to cancel somebody. So
I know, I did hear that. I heard about
Sure
that.
did, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you've been on them, brother. You've been on them, and I give you all the props in the world. You've been doing a heck of a job, man. All right, let me see if we got any questions we can answer or anything like that.
I don't see this kid's name in here, so he may not be a part of the mix.
All right, if anybody has any questions, y'all drop them in real quick, and we'll try to answer them.
Now, another guy that actually that you factor in, if I had to go to my 4th place guy, would be Zaldane. Zaldane is a guy that's going to throw a big swim bait, and he's going to try to locate some of these places where these fish are out in that, say, 12 to 20 foot of water on those big swim baits, and he's notorious for doing that. And if he stumbles on some good wads of those big fish out in that range, you might ought to watch out for him.
You're only allowed 3 picks. But since you didn't know the
Because
name,
I don't know my name of the other guy,
that's your
I'm going to
third.
replace it with
All
Zaldane.
right, so you've got
I've got Lee,
Brandon Polnick,
and Zaldane.
Gotcha. We're going to take that down for record. We're going to put those in with me and Chris's pick. And then next week on the podcast, we'll see who all did the best. It'll be awesome.
There you have it.
Hey, Justin Hodges wants to know what's current water temp at Main Lake.
Main Lake, 75.
It's getting there. I mean, some of the creeks you're getting close to 80.
I had one. I was
Yeah.
in 82.
Yeah, it's getting warm.
Day before yesterday.
Yeah.
Today, most of the places at the mouths of everything was 77, 78 right now.
Excuse me. Woo!
But I did see Main Lake stuff more 75. Some areas 76.
Yeah. And I think what influences these fish a lot isn't even necessarily always the water temperature. Is the daylight period. The daylight period is their calendar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the only way they know it's time to go to the bank in the spring or whatever. A lot of times the temperatures don't warm up. They'll still go up there because the days are getting longer. I think the same thing to pull off the bank. And this year there's not anything to hold them on the bank really. I mean, you've got to be a little bit off the bank to catch them, just because there's no shoreline cover to speak of with the lake being low like it is. But I think those fish that start moving out to offshore, I think more than the water temp being 75, I think the movement is triggered by the days getting longer and longer.
Right. Well, and that's
their calendar.
That's what they normally do. And I mean, you got to remember too, poach spawners are harder to catch. They're way more sensitive, and I know that in all years past, even fishing Rayburn, Toledo Bend, post spawners, I mean, we were always having to size down on baits, go to lighter line, and especially on Rayburn where the water was clear in a lot of areas, you know, in our tournaments in May, in order to just come up with a good sack, you know, so you have to factor that in also, in which fits what I'm doing right now, whether some of them are pre or post. You asked me the key question. I said, am I seeing any fish with bloody tails? Still to this day, we've got fish with bloody tails. Even today.
Oh yeah, there's still fish on beds right now.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
Even
there is still, like, it is not out of the realm of possibility that you see a dude posted up on a bed fish in live coverage.
Right.
Like, it's possible.
Yeah.
It is possible.
Yeah.
Dusty Newton says, did the brim just start spawning? To me, there's been some spawning back in creeks for a little while. But like the main lake brim and down south brim, yeah, they're just starting.
And the reason why that is that they're water temperature sensitive, and most of the time they'll spawn 78 to 82 degrees is when they really fire off. And that will really, from this point, for the next 2 weeks or so, will really kick off good.
Yep, brim spawn's going down. After the lake finally does come back up, how long do you think it will take for good grass to come back? Man.
There won't be any.
Huh?
I don't think it'll grow back. Will it?
I think it will.
My thought to this is, how many times you've been around the lake and you see all this grass that's growing on a bank that's 3 foot tall. Rayburn has hay grass, all right? A lot of hay grass that's stayed there. Will this turn into that scenario of hay grass? Because you can go on Rayburn right now and throw a swim jig or a swim bait shallow in the morning and through that mess and get bit. You won't catch no giants.
Speaking of, I'm going to Rayburn.
But you'll catch
day
fish,
after tomorrow.
You'll
so
catch a decent bag.
keep
doing
giving
that.
the Rayburn tips.
Yeah,
I'm headed there this
and
weekend.
So, but you can do that. But when I was there, I finished second in a tournament there 2 weeks ago, and we were scoping the fish out in 12 foot of water using an active target, looking at them on submerged stumps.
Yeah.
Is the way we finished second.
All I can do is relate to what happened in 2014 with the grass. Okay, now in 2014 the lake had been low for 3 years, right? And when it came back up in 2015, so the lake had been low for 3 years. When it came back up after it had been low for 3 years, hydrilla did grow back. Even in the pockets across from Oak Ridge and Minnebucket, down at the mouth of Little Caney, we had hydrilla all up in those areas.
All down
You go
Eugene's
to
ditch.
northern east side, Glade, it all grew hydrilla when the lake first came back up. What happens is the longer the lake's down, the more the soil replenishes nutrients. Now, when it first comes back up, all that flooded stuff has got to die first.
Right.
That's got to, because all that stuff that's growing on dry land right now, that's going to die when the water gets over. It takes time for that to die. Then once that dies, then the grass can slowly start coming back. If I remember correctly, it flooded in the spring. I did not see significant grass growth until the end of summer going into fall. Then the next spring was when we really started seeing hydrilla pop up all over the place. And it stayed for a year or two, and then it went away for whatever reason. It got, because the lake didn't come all the way up. It came up a little bit, hydrilla grew. Then I think it came up and the hydrilla got in too deep of water and it died off. I think that's what happened. So that's the last scenario. So to answer your question, if the lake comes back up, at this point, guys, it's likely to be next pre-spawn to spawn period before the lake comes up to full pool. Minimum. It's likely to be that before we reach full pool. We're to the time of year now, we don't necessarily get a whole lot more of the big flooding rains at this point. We're getting close to June now. So we're going to lose some water level in the summer like we always do.
Because of evaporation. This lake in the summer evaporates a ½ inch a day.
Yeah, so we're going to lose some water level in the summer like always. So for us to expect to reach full pool in the fall, I don't think that's a reality. It's not, unless we have a super wet fall, that's not realistic. And we may not even reach full pool next spring. We may not.
I'm kind of digging going into the summer with the lake being this low, because there's a lot of deep water places that I have smoked them on back in 2014-15 that now I'm going to get to fish this summer that I didn't get to fish in summers past.
Once we get to June, there will always be resident fish that stay relatively shallow on Fork. I think shallow is going to be a different term this year than it has been in years past. So 5, 6, 8 foot will be kind of shallow summer water this year or whatever. They'll stay around some of the docks that have water on them. There'll always be some of those. But the majority of the fish in the lake are going to all do the same thing this year. They're going offshore. They're going to gather in schools on structure of all different kinds. And when you put the majority of the fish on the lake doing the same thing, that makes for a very consistent, good bite. I honestly think for the average everyday Joe going on the weekends, that the hot summer bite, the heat of the summer, will be the most consistent bite of the year on fork fishing. I really do believe
I love that summer bite. But also, too, a little tidbit of information is that I did catch some in the last week off docks.
Don't doubt it. Now that it's starting to get
There's
hot
some
and
docks-
sunshiny, they're going to
There
get
is
that
some
shade.
docks that have 5 and 6 foot of water on the outside
It's
of
the
the dock.
only significant shade on the lake is
Yeah,
docks right
yeah.
now. There's no
And,
grass.
I wouldn't doubt that some of those guys will find those docks and actually be throwing spinner baits, whatever the case, under their jigs.
Oh, come on, man. You got to drop shot the dock. That's the way you do it.
I do it. I drop
That's the
shot.
way you do
and
it.
I did catch them on drop shot.
I know you
Shocker.
did.
Big
I know
shocker.
you did. That's awesome.
Ah, well.
Well, David, man, thank you so much for coming down to join us tonight, man. Thank you guys most of all for joining us tonight. We sure appreciate it. We hope that this little live stream we took the time to do tonight brings some more enjoyment to your viewing pleasure next week when the Bassmaster Elite Series is going to be kicking it off and just doing big things, man. I am so looking forward to watching this, brother.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it.
All right, youngin.
Thank you,
Thanks
Dave.
for having me.
Thank all you guys one more time. We'll see you next time right here. Where are we going to see them, Dave?
Your Lake Fork guide.
See, we've gotten better.